it's never too early to start forming relationships. I'd really be thinking about it on the first day of practice. How am I going to do that?
Welcome to our Happy Rainmaker video series. We have Chris Santomassimo with us today. Welcome, Chris.
Thanks, Jennifer. It's good to see you.
So I brought you here because you're so good with business development. What do you think the most important thing about business development is?
Yeah, that's a big question, and I think there's probably a lot of different answers to it. But I think if you were to summarize the most important thing, it's about relationships at the end of the day, and ultimately, how you develop those relationships and how effective you are will determine how successful you are. But at the end of the day, everybody's going to have a different variation on how they develop those relationships. For me, relationships are really everything, and being natural about and organic about how you create relationships, is ultimately what you need to focus on.
So what kind of advice would you give a junior lawyer who's just getting started on business development, or somebody even a little bit more senior who's realizing they need to spend a little more time with business development? How would they start out with developing these relationships?
For a young lawyer, I would say it's never too early to start forming relationships. How you might do that as a young lawyer as opposed to an experienced lawyer may be different in some respects. But I ultimately think it's about meeting meaningful people and creating strong relationships with people who could be a referral source, could be a client, could be somebody that's an interesting person in your life that you learn from. I'd really be thinking about it on the first day of practice. How am I going to do that? And it's not just about having a social media presence, and it's not about how many LinkedIn connections that you have, but it's about how many strong relationships that you have. Especially as a young lawyer, I don't think there's anybody off limits. They should, get out into their community, whatever that community is, and start to create relationships. And those relationships are going to lead to something. Sometimes they come to an abrupt end because there's really no future in it. But that's part of the process too, is really sifting through who those people are that are going to be meaningful to your practice. And I think also meeting people that potentially fit your practice is important as well. If you're working at a large law firm, you may think that, well, I need to meet a bunch of general counsels, or I need to meet senior executives at Fortune 500 companies. And I think that's where I know I made that mistake as a young lawyer, frankly, because I worked at a large firm. Our clients were major public companies. And so you think, well, I'm never going to meet those people, so why would I bother? But I came to the realization, maybe a little bit later than some people, that there's always going to be a place for strong connections and strong friends, no matter where you are. And it's about really meeting as many meaningful people as you can that I think are going to impact your world potentially in some way. You're going to find the ones you like, the ones that are valuable, the ones that aren't. And really creating that strong network that you can nurture over time is important. Certainly keeping track of those people. And when I mentioned LinkedIn connections before, I think just sterile, non-meaningful connections don't mean a whole lot. But using those devices though to track the important people that you meet in life, see where they go, sharing things with them, bringing them value, and that's actually something I want to say a little bit about too. But it's about getting out there and making yourself a little bit vulnerable too, but getting out there to meet people and hopefully giving them some value as well. I think a lot of people also make the mistake that when they're trying to make connections with people, that they think they're looking for something from people to somehow determine whether the relationship is fruitful or not. But I think what's been good for me is to think about sort of making the first move on providing value to people, whatever that value might be. It could be free advice. It could be friendship. It could be the opportunity to promote themselves on, like, for example, we started a podcast with that idea in mind, is give people a platform that's going to bring value to them, whether or not they ever come back to us. But what you find is when you give people value up front, and you're being yourself also, those opportunities are going to start to manifest in a more organic way rather than just trying to do these little sniper attacks, if you will, to hit people quickly and make some kind of determination about whether it's a valuable connection. You just may not know for a long time. But if you've planted the seed in a valuable way with them, chances are it's going to come. It's going to come back to you in a positive way eventually.
Well, I think that makes a lot of sense. Thank you very much for giving us some of this information and these tips. I'm sure it's going to help a lot of people.
Thanks, Jen, for the opportunity.